Good evening and welcome to the Southbridge Town Council meeting of Monday, September 10th, 2018. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councillor Adams.
Present.
Councillor O'Clair.
Present.
Councillor Daniel.
Present.
Councillor DePietro. Councillor Jovan.
Present.
Councillor Manna. Councillor Morales. Councillor Nash.
Present.
Councillor Steves.
Present.
7 members present, 2 absent. Consider and accept the... 6? Oh, 6 present. Sorry, 3 absent. Agenda item 3, consider and accept the Town Council meeting minutes of Monday, August 20th, 2018. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any errors, corrections, or omissions to those minutes? Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question, because I noticed on agenda item number 4, Planning and Development D, Subcommittee Chair Councilor is struck, but Councilor remains on General Government Subcommittee Chair Councilor Steve. So just for consistency, are we leaving Councilor or not?
Go either way.
I could too. I just
Yeah.
like consistency.
How was it in the past? Chair will go, so strike council and we'll go with chair. Thank you.
Good enough. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Any further corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor of acceptance? Opposed? Unanimous of those present. Agenda item 3A, consider and accept the special town council meeting minutes of Thursday, August 23rd, 2018. Is there a motion? So moved. Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any errors, corrections, or omissions on those?
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Councilor Nash.
Just a question on the minutes.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that it was clearly stated, but it wasn't anywhere that I noted, that the document that I forwarded through to you to share for that particular meeting was not labeled as such, but it was not titled Town Manager Goals and Objectives, and there was conversation in here about that document being strictly addressed to the town manager, when in fact I believe I titled it Goals and Objectives of the Town of Southbridge and or Town Council and Town Manager. So I just want it understood that was my intention with the document. It's not clearly stated in here, and it wasn't included in the minutes as a document used.
So it's not in here?
It says Town Manager Goals and Objectives. That was not the title of the document that I provided you. So if you look on page 4 at the very bottom,
Okay.
just want to make sure that we refer to it properly. Thank you. And I'll be abstaining since I was not present at that meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed? 1 abstention?
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, subcommittee reports, General Government, Councilor Steves.
I don't have the minutes on me, but we did meet recently, and several.
Hold on, your mic's not working.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can't hear you.
I said I don't have the minutes on me at the moment, but we did meet a couple of times recently, and I think we have a couple of these agenda items are on our current agenda, so we will get to them when we get to them. I do have one scheduled for this Wednesday at 6:30.
Thank you. Department of Public Works, Councilor DePietro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joint meeting of the Department of Public Works and Town Council was held on August 30th, 2018. Quorum was in attendance. At least 7 agenda items on tonight's council agenda went through the Department of Public Works Subcommittee. As we all know, we have a very long schedule this evening. I'll reserve any comment on the meeting until these items directly addressed from council. Thank you.
Thank you. EHS, Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you. Meeting of the Education and Human Services Subcommittee, joint with Town Council, was held on August 30th. And on tonight's agenda, we have 7 items, 9 through 12, 19 through 21. And I'll address those particular items when we reach them, and I'll note that we have committee meetings scheduled for this Wednesday, August 12th at 5:30 here at Town Hall for a couple of hopefully brief items. Thank you.
Thank you. Plan and Development, Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. We haven't had a meeting since our last town council meeting. We do have one scheduled for tomorrow at 5:30 down in the Veterans Room. That's all I have.
Thank you. Protections of Persons and Property. Council Manor is the chair of that. She's not here this evening. There are a couple items that were taken up in her meeting that are on tonight's agenda. I do know that she has a meeting scheduled, I believe, for Monday, September 17th, to discuss hiring of personnel. Chairman's announcements. I did have one announcement. I gotta find it.
Because I kind of knew it was to me too. I said, you said I'll do it, so I looked for it.
I apologize, I know I had printed it. It was on September 22nd is a event at the library. I know my Councilor Adams, if you could look that up real quick on your email. Oh, no, you wouldn't have it, I would have it. I apologize. Anyway, there is an event at the library. Margaret, are you here? Are you aware of that event for the talk at the library? Could you come to the podium and just announce it? I apologize. I did have it, and I meant to present it tonight, and thought I was prepared, but evidently I'm not. No, it was sent to my email. Thank you, Margaret, for bailing me out. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I believe you're referring to the Felix Gatineau English translation of his book.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so on September 27th, which is a Thursday evening at 6:30, Dr. Elizabeth Blood will be here from Salem State University. She has recently published the first translation of the Franco-American history of Southbridge, which was published by Felix Gatineau in 1919. So this is now available in English for the first time, which is really amazing because the book was not accessible to a lot of people in recent times because of the language barrier. So she is going to be here and to talk about what Southbridge was like 100 years ago, around the time of when Felix Gatineau wrote the book. So her talk will be based on the research that she has come up with during her time researching and doing the translation. So it should be a very interesting event. And, you know, it's not just for people who have French-Canadian heritage, it's really for everyone in the community because it's one of the composite parts of our heritage, and I think it'd be very interesting for everyone. Thanks to the cable access TV, we will have the event will be broadcast in a couple of weeks afterwards. So anybody who can't make the event, you know, it will be available to view at a later point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
See, there's a reason for everything. You did a much better job than I could have ever done to promote that event, so thank you. I don't have any other announcements at this time. Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick things, just to get people informed and ready to deal with those issues. One is the Dresser Street. We'll be doing some work on that road shortly. We don't exactly have the date, but sometime this fall, the road, at least a section of the road, will be closed to deal with the culvert issue. So people that live on that street should be prepared, and people who use that as a cut through to get to places like Town Hall should understand that we're going to have a piece of that road closed right across from the ball field, so you can expect that coming up. Also, for those who use Henry Street basketball court, the court will be getting a facelift, assuming that the vote on tonight's agenda goes forward. You can expect that basketball court will be closed for a month or so as we're repairing and actually upgrading that basketball court to make it a facility that the children can really enjoy, children and adults can really enjoy. The third issue, as you can see, we're doing a lot of work during the fall here, is the Central Street parking lot. We're doing a whole complete facelift to the Central Street parking lot as well. That's going to be done over a 2-year period, but you can expect that either parts or all of that parking lot will be closed at different times as the contractors are working on upgrading that parking lot as well. So just to let you know, various items are moving forward, all which is positive, but it is going to create a little bit of inconvenience for people as we're fixing those items. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Tonight, we do have one presentation. The presentation is on a medical marijuana dispensary presented by Bob Patton and Chris Zalecki from Green Meadows Farm. And with that, I will turn this over to our town planner, Ken. And Rosemary, if she sees fit, or whoever's doing the introduction, that's fine. Ken, welcome.
Good evening, councilors. Ken Comia, town planner. So as part of this process, as you know, the council will be reading for the third time, the marijuana, medical marijuana registered marijuana dispensary bylaw this evening. With that said, assuming the council would pass it, we do have something in the pipeline that would put that bylaw to the test. And it is a registered marijuana dispensary. Just a brief introduction about Mr. Patton. He came down to the Economic Development and Planning Office, and at first he said he was doing his research about towns that were adopting marijuana bylaws, medical marijuana bylaws, and I think he has a story here to share with the councilors, and I will turn it over to him. And Chris Zalecki, who also is part of the Green Meadows Farm.
Thank you, Ken. Hope you all can hear me. Again, I'm Bob Patton, and this is our COO of Green Meadows Farm. Also happens to be my stepson. I don't even like to use the term step. He's been stuck with me for about 34 years, but nevertheless, he is my stepson, been also a businessman in his own right, and part of our family team that's put together this proposal, or what we hope will be a proposal to the town of Southbridge. Thank you, Ken, too, for being our first introduction to the town. You and Ms. Scrivens and of course Ron, we met early on to become familiar with the town and what was going on with the medical marijuana discussions in the town, and also to talk a little bit about ourselves and how we came to get into the notion of becoming medical marijuana cultivators, first of all, and then managers and owners of RMDs, registered medical dispensaries. I don't want to take too much of it. I'm sure you have a very full agenda tonight, but a little bit of background about where we come from and how our family, because we're very much a family business, came to be here tonight is probably in order. So let me just say, our family, we have a place up in Essex County, Hamilton, Massachusetts. It's about an hour and a half drive from here, and it's been in our family for many, many years. It's no secret. My grandfather, when he was in the military, his name was George Patton, and he was a major in 1928. And he and his wife Beatrice bought this farm in Hamilton, Massachusetts, in 1928. And lo, these many, many years later, my father retired there himself, also like his father, a military Army general. And when my father retired in 1980, he retired to what had been just a quiet horse farm up in Hamilton, Massachusetts. But my father was not sort of a guy that likes to sit around riding horses. There's anything wrong with that, or looking at sunsets and walking his lawn. He was a go-getter. So he started a farm, an organic, you pick 'em, as he called it, you pick your own blueberry farm. And he did that through his retirement life until he passed away in 2004. At that time, it was then a full-tilt organic produce farm, certified as such, one of the first in the area where we live, about 30 acres under cultivation on the place. My mother, his wife Joanne, took over the operation in 2004 and continued to run it, and really until this time last year, where she's just turned 87 today, right? And she really couldn't manage the farm in its state that it was, which was as a retail operating organic produce farm, a CSA, a consumer community supported agriculture farm, one of those collectives. It was a real vibrant place, and she loved doing it. but it had run its course for the family in a lot of ways, and we didn't know what to do next. And then last summer, we were sitting around, myself, my siblings, my sons, Chris and Tom, and Rob and James, what are we going to do next? And suddenly the idea came forward from two of my siblings who work a great deal with veterans. My sister lives in Europe and works primarily with the Greatest Generation folks that come to Europe to tour the great battlefields. And my brother, who lives in New York, works in with a therapy program that he's founded called Patton Veterans Project, which again helps with PTSD issues, particularly in this new generation of so many men and women that have served, all of us in uniform, over these last 15 years of war. Through this anecdotal discussion in the family, my sister and brother said, well, we here, medical cannabis, may be helping veterans. And I at first said, this is not what our family is really cut out to do. We've been growing tomatoes and blueberries, and that's sort of who we are. But the idea took hold, and we discussed it among ourselves. We realized we had to get educated. We began to bring in some advisors to talk about how do you mount a business like this in Massachusetts. We were always interested in conforming to the medical space. This was more comfortable for us as a family. I think a lot of towns and communities find it more comfortable. We all know what's going on in Massachusetts with the vote in 2016, the referendum. That's happening sort of off-screen from what we're doing. We have proceeded in the town of Hamilton and have gained all the approvals for the executed host community agreement, the executed letter of support, and the executed confirmation of zoning from the Hamilton Board of Selectmen to allow us to put in a 60,000 square foot greenhouse to grow medical marijuana as a wholesale cultivator. By our agreement with our host community, Hamilton, we are a medical marijuana grower. Consequently, as the state requires, because we originally were going to be just wholesalers, we thought this is what we do. We didn't imagine ourselves as running a retail operation. We had done that with our farm stand, and we might have continued to do that, we thought, for a while. And so we said, let's just be wholesalers. We'll provide the medical marijuana to those who really, and believe me, this has been part of my education of the last couple of years, but really in the last year when I became intensely involved with it, of seeing this marijuana as truly medicine, as truly a very exciting source of research, source of what might be anecdotal information about its benefits, now moving into, thankfully, into research and really sort of proven, studied benefits of this plant. And we've now met so many people whose children, nieces, parents themselves, who we never knew used medical marijuana in various phases. And so we've completely become really advocates of this product and are really excited to be growing it where we are in Hamilton. And we're beginning to do that process now of constructing that greenhouse. Why Southbridge? Well, as I told Ken and all the folks in the planning department and Ron, we started by looking for real estate because we needed to have an directly affiliated registered medical dispensary. And so we first started looking for nice pieces of property. We would like to build a freestanding building, make it sort of conform with the neighborhood, be part of maybe identifying ourselves with an attractive building, a very welcoming space that's really built and designed for security and safety and aesthetic appeal, and also customer service, patient service. And we wanted to be able to build those buildings. So we looked for open lots. We thought this would be great. Well, the one that we happened upon down on Mill Street, sort of in that wedge between Pleasant and Mill and Canal and Main Street along the river there, it stood out to me as a possibility. And as I read more about the property and then learned more about the town, the hospital, the great hospital that you have here, and we thought this might be worth exploring if they'll have us. If they'll have us, because you want to go where you're wanted, of course. So we began our introductions in an informal way with Ken and Ron and Ms. Scrivens, and then we presented informally to the planning board in a sort of a lesser version of perhaps tonight, talking about just what I did, a little anecdotal story of the family. Where did we come from? Why are we here in Southbridge, introducing ourselves in this way? And then, lo and behold, here we are tonight, maybe moving a little forward toward what we hope. And I can only say this as genuinely as I can. the more we have met folks from Southbridge, whether it's having dinner at the pizza restaurant or the Fins and Tails or whatever it might be, and getting calls from other landowners, commercial property owners around that square. I know it's not literally a square, but I think of it as a town square there. And the hospital being present, and all the folks that we've met through Ken and others here, we just think, wow, I think we might have gotten lucky with this choice of Southbridge. And so that's where we're coming from. That's what's brought us here. We've done a lot of work. We've had the site surveyed. We're using the engineering company Fuss & O'Neill that I know has done a lot of work for the town, and I know Ron's very familiar with it. Very top-notch civil engineering firm. They've already laid out some footprints for some possibilities that we might do. These are purely proposals. These aren't our decisions. We'll have to go through the permitting process and make sure it conforms with whatever the town would require. But we are here to begin our proposal. We've secured the land, and until you say no, you're stuck with our application, and we're going to try to make an application to open up a registered medical dispensary at this location in Southbridge and serve the people. And we'll see, business-wise, who knows? But we just want to be part. I'm so excited when I speak with the other landowners, the other commercial property owners about what they think is going to be happening in this part of town. There's a lot of energy there, very welcoming to our business. And ours might not be the great destination that all the world will come to, but if we're part of any kind of a renewal, that's very exciting. It just has a real kind of fun appeal as to our family. We found a town that seems to perhaps think well of us and maybe what we're trying to do, and we go forward as partners. Lastly, of course, when I say partners, there's a literal sense of partnership here because, of course, we are part of the community. It's a matter of trust. It's a matter of responsibility. We know that this is a product which is in a great deal of flux across the country, less so in the medical realm, but certainly we all know what's happening with the discussions about the legalization or whatnot. Again, not our area. I always say that's not our discussion to have. The communities around us will do what they do. We are strictly a medical provider, medical grower, medical provider. But as we form up that partnership, it begins to take really real and material form because we have an obligation, and we welcome it, to establish a financial partnership with the town as well. There's an element of putting in an unusual business, let's call it unusual, certainly for Southbridge and certainly for the Patton family of 2 years ago anyway. And it has certain impacts on the community. Maybe there's more oversight by local police. Maybe we want to make sure we're on really good terms with drug counselors and fire department, first responders, and of course everyone here in Town Hall. And those impacts are real. They put something of a new strain upon a town, and so we have an obligation that we welcome to make good on that with a financial exchange. And you don't want to put too fine a point on it. If we do well as a business, we then would affiliate with the town of Southbridge to partner in that growth. So usually one finds these host community agreements. When towns began striking them up, when medical first came online in Massachusetts, a lot of towns were going with flat fees and this and that. That's not our decision. We were just speaking with Ron Del Santo earlier. The town council of Southbridge, along with this board, will decide what kind of a format the host community agreement might take. But what we have struck with the town of Hamilton and with other towns that we're talking with is a guaranteed base payment. So when we first get started, the town can budget that there will be a certain base payment that the Green Meadows Farm will be obliged to put forward to the town. And then we will index to our gross annual revenue of some sort of an index number. And as we hopefully do begin, while we struggle as a toddler in the beginning with our business, as we begin to hopefully become known in town, trusted in town, and gain a clientele of patients, and revenues go up, that then becomes indexed to what we give the town. So it truly is a partnership. And we found that this makes the best kind of relationships, because now you're working with the first responders in town. You're working with the town hall officials to say, we want to do it right, we want to make an attractive building, we want to be a really, really responsible member of this community, because this is a product which is still in a lot of legal flux around the country. And because of that, we want to go beyond compliance, beyond safety, beyond security, all the things that the state mandates, and say, through this agreement with the town, we want you to have local oversight, we want you to have full access, we want to have full coordination with your authorities, and also full financial disclosures. And if, God willing, we make a good go of it, we go up together. And there's an index not based on our expenses, it's purely off of our revenue. And I would like nothing more than to be wonderfully successful and to have to give a big chunk of money to the town of Southbridge. It'd be great. And so that's really, I mean, that's very much a part of the equation, but it doesn't start there. I'll end where I started. Maybe Chris will want to say a word and tell me all the things I forgot. But we really did, as a family, meet at crossroads with our organic farm. And when we thought about what to do next, and my brother and my sister and I am an advisor on my brother's veterans project, said this is good. This can do good for veterans. There's enough out there where we're hearing about phantom pain issues as a possible alternative to opioids. This to me is music to my ears. I've coached youth sports all my life. I have 4 sons. They were all great athletes. I stunk. But as I say, if you can't coach, then if you couldn't do it as an athlete, go coach it instead. Well, that was me. But I can't tell you, in a town where I live in Connecticut, and of course I spend more and more time in Massachusetts, I have 4 young boys that I coached that were from privileged families, white-collar families that are in the ground today because of opioids. And when I get very tearful when I hear about it, and when I hear anything about there's a possibility that within cannabis, whether in some sort of distilled form or through products which they're beginning to extract from the cannabis, that it can somehow reduce the dependency on opioids. I want to hear about it, and I want to find out about it, because it has hurt me to my core, and I bet there are people in this room who have been through it as well. So that's very much a part of what brings us here too. We really believe in it. We hope it'll be a good business for all of us, but we believe in it. So I can stand up here, and I never thought I would, 18 months ago, and speak to a town council like yourselves and a group of folks like yourselves about this. But here we are. And I'm a believer, and we think we can do it right, and we hope that Southbridge will give us a chance to do it right. So, Chris, tell me what I forgot to say.
Chris Sawaki, COO, Green Meadows. As usual, Bob has covered everything. I'll be the one leading the operations teams at the cultivation and extraction facility, as well as the dispensaries, wherever they end up in the state. And you have our commitment to adhere to integrity, quality, responsibility, the commitment to excellence that the family has always represented, and in the business world we represent as well. So in terms of partnering with the town, the first responders, emergency, police, fire, and obviously security of the facility, we take that extremely seriously. That's priority 1, and that's the way we'll operate, and there will be no room for compromise in any of those areas. So those of us that are part of that team, you have our word and our commitment to operate the business above board in all aspects.
Mention our veterans too.
And we do have a commitment as well at all of our locations in the future to hiring veterans. So we've already made contact up in Hamilton and the surrounding areas there with the veteran agents, and we'll want to do so locally wherever we end up elsewhere in the state. Obviously, we can't commit to that 100%, but if the situation is right and we find the right folks, that is high on our list. And we also pledge a percentage of our net income in support of veterans as well as an organization. So that's part of our mission, our ethos, and who we are. So we look forward to that.
Questions, comments? Councilor DePietro?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did not have an opportunity to peruse through this very well, but obviously your facility is going to be operating with hydroponics.
Excuse me, sir, I didn't hear you.
I say, obviously, your facility is going to be operating with hydroponics.
To some degree. Our growers are helping us really set up our particular style of grow. I will say about our particular greenhouse, most of the grows in Massachusetts and in New England are sort of warehouse grows. They're converted hard-topped buildings. We are going to be one of the first, certainly of our size, in New England, which is going with glass-topped hybrid greenhouses. One sees them in Canada. They're starting to come developed in the West, and they use the sun as much as possible. They have glass tops, and they are more expensive to build in the beginning, but they save a huge amount on energy, and the science is telling us now they build and help create a more natural plant, which is getting its, a lot of its energy and its sort of what would be its light equivalent from the actual sun. So this hydroponics, organic, and this element of being what they call a four-season hybrid greenhouse. In other words, we will have lights when necessary, but we will use as much as we can of the natural sun. And it creates difficulties we're finding because they're less insulated than a warehouse that you convert and all of that, but it builds a more organic product. So I don't know if I veered off hydroponics, forgive me, but that's an element where our growers are really going to help us to find the right sort of style of growing in this particular style of greenhouse that we're building.
If I may, Mr. Chair, obviously, just looking at your site, you're not picking a field somewhere. So obviously, it's going to be indoor growing, your facility.
Just for point of clarification, Councilor DePietro, this is a dispensary only. The cultivation is in a different part of the state. This is just going to be a facility for them to sell the actual product.
Yes, sir. If I was, forgive me if I was unclear. Think of what we're doing in Hamilton as a wholesale greenhouse. We don't have a dispensary outlet there. So now we're looking to affiliate purely with the dispensary. Think of it as a CVS. Essentially, it's a standalone building for patients to come in and come out. So we won't be growing here of any kind. We will bring in our product from our cultivation facility.
So this would be distribution center, shipping, how far would you say? From the town of Southbridge?
Well, nothing will be shipped out of there. We will be bringing, it's about, as I say, a little less than a 2-hour drive from where we are. And the laws and regulation around that are as strict as every other element of this business in Massachusetts. We probably would outsource the transportation from our cultivation to here. And it's done it's not big trucks. These are vans that come in unmarked. Those who are professional transporters of this are as rigorously background checked and examined at the state level as we are. And they have to apply for their own licenses, and also, in a sense, we are all partners with the transporters, with the growers, and with the dispensers, and we just have sort of two legs of that particular equation, if that makes sense.
No, and if I may, Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering, I mean, Southbridge has so much potential for so many things, but we're not great getting the highways.
Yep.
And I'm wondering why Southbridge would be your choice for a distribution center.
We saw that it's
Which
not
I look
that
forward to
far
having
from,
you folks
no, it's
come
not
in.
that far from the highways. It's not on the Cloverleaf. It's definitely a little, it's 4.5 miles or whatever from 84, I think. That's okay. We love the idea of the hospital being there, and it's a good-sized community. It's got towns around it. There's Charlton. There are things going on there and all the rest. But we've looked at other locations, and we hope perhaps we can have multiple dispensaries. But we're definitely going to do one in Southbridge if you'll have us. But some we say, yeah, it's right on the highway. Isn't that great? This one we said, there are other factors that are appealing. The hospital being one of them. The community that we've met being one of them. The place, this sense of the town is trying and maybe is well on the way. And it's not for me to say where you're at in this, but there's a lot going on. There's a sense of, speaking with these commercial developers around the square where we're looking at, there's a sense of this is an exciting time. And that appealed to us. And we sort of stumbled into it, but that appealed to us. So I recognize it. It's not right on the highway, but we think it's close enough because we've been to grows that are sort of western Mass or sort of north of Boston, and they want to go into Boston and bring their cultivate and bring into Boston. That ain't an easy ride either, So going through Boston is time-wise no different. So we'll take our chances. That sort of will be our problem, not Southbridge's, but we'll make it work, and we'll make sure that those who bring it in are the best of the best. And so that's our pledge. It's part of our operation, and if there's any problem with transportation, that'll be a poor reflection on us, and no one else.
No, I certainly appreciate your interest in Southbridge. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Steves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of quick questions. First of all, I'm glad to hear that you're coming. You're looking at our town. I've supported the idea of medical marijuana for years. I was hoping that you could explain a little bit about the nature of the products you hope to carry, for starters.
Yes. Well, you can step up a little bit. I'll start and then hand it to Chris. At the greenhouse, we will be, growing sort of the plant, the flower.
Right.
We also will be extracting into oil, which is more and more useful in the whether it's the topical creams, whether it's in the edible medicines that are there, because a lot of doctors and such don't want you smoking the medicine. They say there are better ways to bring it into the body. So we will have a capacity in our greenhouse, which is sort of multi-purpose. Part of it is under glass. We will also have the extraction room. We will also have an ability to create the topical creams and such that we want. And there are people that want to partner with us that already do this, that will bring their ability to make these ancillary products in which we can put our organic, sun-grown extracted oil. The oil is becoming more and more popular and sort of more multi-useful across the spectrum.
Right.
But it starts with the plant. But we are also a processing facility in Hamilton. Within the greenhouse, we will also be extracting under the best circumstances. They're all different kinds of ways of doing it, but we find the cold CO2 extraction is the safest and the best and makes the best product. So we want to try to keep in mind that we come from this organic farm that's been in place for 35 years. And if we can build on that, just as we wanted to go with a greenhouse rather than a warehouse build, if we can build an extraction facility that uses those same kind of principles, we think that's good for our brand, and we also think it's great for our patients. So it's a kind of a nice mix. Did I, again, speak up?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and at this point we probably don't have the answer for you. We're just starting to design and build the greenhouse in Hamilton, but we are assembling the product development team and our marketing team. So it's kind of for us $1 million question. What is the market going to be asking for? But patients are going to come in with back pain and anxiety, and so the products that we have, whether it be edibles, whether it be vape, whether it be topicals, it'll be driven a little bit by the product development team and their findings and their surveys and research, and also we're going to be reaching out to the medical community and try to get an understanding of what patients would you be referring to us, what conditions do you see and most likely are to refer to us, and what kind of treatment can help alleviate those ailments. So we're just starting that process ourselves, to be honest, to find out, hey, what is the market actually going to want, and what do we need to create, and then work with our product development team and the growing team to determine how we get to that endpoint. So.
If I could just jump in, I want to hear your next question if you have one, but what I didn't mention was another attraction that we had with where Southbridge was at was our timelines seemed somewhat in sync, in the sense that we now have fully been approved in our town of Hamilton on this farm where we're going to use a block of about 4 acres on which we'll put our greenhouse and all the the accessibility roads, etc. But we are and we're now beginning the site work. We're going to start building this very soon because we have all our approvals and off we go. But it takes a while, and it will take a while, God willing, to go through a permitting process here in Southbridge. But I sort of saw when I was learning about where you were as a council in considering your new medical bylaw, that sort of was conformed with our own time frame of we hope to be putting in cultivation, deciding just the kinds of questions you're asking about. What will be the best kind of product? What will be our style of grow? What will be the products that we bring to our patients at the same time that we are have our building maybe beginning under construction here. So we'll kind of come together with all of these things together. And so rather than us being different places in operation, we sort of liked that we were both moving forward together into this new space for us as a family and to some degree, I think, for Southbridge as well. So that was part of an attraction. I thought, there's kind of a little bit of sort of serendipity here. I feel like we're on the same wavelength right now in moving into this space together. And so again, that was just something I forgot to mention earlier.
Okay, thank you. Also, I was curious, you brought up the idea of working with the local medical community, and I know I have heard some concerns that some elements of Harrington don't really like the idea of medical marijuana. Personally, I think it makes sense. I mean, because not everybody has positive reactions to pharmaceuticals, so I think it logically makes sense to have a facility near our hospital. So do you have any ideas at this point of how you plan to work with Harrington? Is that something you've thought about yet?
It's so early right now, but I will say this, and I know Chris is going to concur. I have learned to be, even in the medical space, if we're leaving off the legal side at all, that's not where we're at. This is a really important discussion to have, and those who have doubts, disputes, you take them on those terms. You don't get into this, you're wrong, I'm right. That's the wrong way to do it. My thought is, maybe, let's have a look. but let's put it under the bright light of real research and see if there's something there. Let's be aware how dangerous it can be in the wrong hands, in the hands of youth, whatever else, but let's see if there is something real there, because there are volumes of literature that say maybe there really is something there. But if there is a medical doctor or a researcher that says, Mr. Patton, you're crazy and I don't believe in it, I'm going to say, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right, but I happen to think maybe you're wrong, and let us give it a try. And I don't sort of get into battles with knowledgeable people or people of good faith and good heart. That's not the way to do it. It's simply to say, I think it's worth a shot, and I think maybe there's something there, and let's find out together under real scrutiny of law and research. And we welcome that.
That makes sense. And last question I had is, you kind of touched briefly on the time frame. Do you have an idea of when you'd be likely to open?
If all goes well, we're looking at late spring next year to start growing in Hamilton, and then obviously moving the product as the harvesting and the cycles play out. So, late summer, early fall next year would probably be, I think, a realistic / optimal for us timeline. Every week, every month brings a curveball, which is part of jumping in this industry, in this space. But that's our hope.
Oh, okay.
One of the things we have done, and I don't, believe me, do this if I'm going too long, but because I know you have other things on your agenda today, but we've tried to move forward, even though there were obstacles ahead of us, even in Hamilton. We went ahead with the pre-site planning, the surveying, getting Fuss & O'Neill and others and architects to draw us. We sort of committed investment-wise. Even though we knew we might not get it, we just had a feeling that it was going to be accepted, and it wasn't. It was a very conservative town, Hamilton. It's 8,000 people voted against the referendum. We're very shocked when when my family, which had been known in the community for decades, said this is what we want to do with our organic farm. By the way, the farm is still continuing. We're leasing the lands now to local farmers. We're not running an actual retail facility anymore, but the 30 acres are still under cultivation, and tomatoes and hay and all kinds of things like that, strawberries, blueberries. So it's still an active farm. It just will have this new component on one side. The timelines, we decided not to wait. And to some extent, we've done that in Southbridge. It's been surveyed. We've had the footprints that I put in the packet. Those are preliminary thoughts, and obviously your permitting officials will have a lot to say about it, as will you. But we've said, let's go forward and trust that maybe the winds will blow. So we won't be starting from square one if we receive an approval from Southbridge. We're on the way. We've already begun. We're talking back and forth. I have meetings tomorrow with Fuss & O'Neill and with our architect to talk about Southbridge, to say what are some of the footprints that we've looked at and what do we think would be a good one to propose. So again, it might all be for naught, but we've decided to push ahead and take our chances. And so to that end, we can get to operations sooner rather than later.
I will say that the industry is moving so fast,
Yeah, it is.
everywhere, but Massachusetts, it's a rat race right now just to get to the starting line.
Right.
As Bob said, we're moving forward with best of intentions that we're going to end up where we'd like to end up now, and if it's not approved where we want to be, then we change course and go elsewhere. But we've got a dispensary manager already lined up for next year. She knows what our timeline is, and it works out for her, and she's somebody we've known for a long time and has the ethics. We have a securities chief already in place for the farm, is going to oversee security for all the locations. So the core team is already in place, so we're moving as fast as we can to stay ahead of what's a fast-moving industry.
Our security head is, he's a farmer. He worked for the TSA after 9/11 for almost 4 years. He's perfect. If you meet him, you'll think he's an FBI agent. He's absolutely perfect. So, and he's about my age, so he's going to be an ideal choice to manage the security elements of all our facilities.
Okay.
And no doubt, he's the kind of person that would be absolutely meeting the police department and all the rest, and probably yourselves, because he's sort of the face of that element of our business, which is safety and security, number one.
And I guess one last question while you're talking about it made me think of it. So do you have a rough estimate of what your expected customer base is in this area? Any idea?
It's a big if. We don't know. That's why that's sort of the investment risk we take. We look around and we think we'll have to talk to doctors. We'll have to see what the patients that are in this area, where they're going, and how we can reach out to them and help them sort of them or their friends sort of get the prescriptions that they would need, or to find out if they need them at all. And that's the gamble of investing anywhere, I suppose. As far as Southbridge goes, that's where having a base commitment of finances from us will give you an ability to say, the family has committed this to us, and if they build up the base over a year or 2 or 3, and then that number exceeds the base number that we guarantee, then we all enjoy the fruits of that. So it's very hard to make that judgment. We've had consultants, they come up and say, well, we estimate this number of traffic, but no one really knows. No one really knows. And
we do have numbers from DPH and the CCC, Cannabis Control Commission, in terms of patients, but not in, we don't have that number in a certain radius of this area and the hospital, and so that's a little bit of an unknown. So there are some unknowns, obviously, and some things that we can't predict, but we think that there's enough, in this area to support this business for sure.
We do know a little bit about trends. As the legal market comes more and more to be part of the environment in Massachusetts, there will be a medical patient group that will probably fall off and just go, maybe because it's closer, and they'll let their prescription fade, and they'll just go to the local, wherever they may be, legal marijuana retailers in Massachusetts. That will probably happen. I'm not an economist, but the curve will probably go down at first. But what's happening, and this goes back to, I think, your question about products, one of our strains that will be growing will be the non-THC strain, which is just the CBDs, the cannabinoids, which are the anti-inflammatory element of cannabis, but doesn't have any psychoactive element. And this is where you're going to see that curve revert, because now you're going to see these in topical creams that you'll give yourself or your mom or your son after his football practice or whatever, that are not affecting the mind in any way. They are simply an anti-inflammatory, and that, as that side of marijuana and cannabis, medical cannabis, comes to the fore, I think you'll see products develop, and I think you'll see that curve rise up again. And of course, medical marijuana is, for those who do use it, is cheaper because it's not taxed as recreational marijuana will be. So,
could I just throw one thing, just to give you a little vision on what the place will actually look like? If you're not familiar with what they look like around the country, the ones that exist currently in the state, I mean, consider it to be pristinely clean. It's more of a consultative relationship that you have when you go in there. Doctors don't necessarily give prescriptions for exactly what you're going in to get. You kind of have a certain ailment. You get your patient card approved from a physician, and then you go in and you consult with the staff that's there. You say, oh, I have anxiety that's based on this episode in my life, and these are the symptoms that I'm feeling, and our staff will consult with you and offer an array of products that we have that are intended to alleviate those types of symptoms and those types of underlying ailments. So it's, think of, some fancy themselves as an Apple store, some are, more lodgy, but it's very clean. Everything is super packaged and secure. So, you're not going in and there's marijuana and weed hanging from the ceilings. Right. It's extremely secure and safe, and it's a consultation. So it's a different experience, I think, than most people, would envision.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Patton and Mr. Zawacki for their interest in Southbridge, and also for a great presentation this evening. Members of the Town Council were provided a packet this evening, and it looks to me to be very similar to that was provided to the Planning Board during the presentation. And maybe Ken can confirm for us that if members of the public are interested, it was published on the Planning Board's page on the town website. So that is available for the public to investigate if they're so interested. I thought that might be of interest. And I'll reserve any further comments until we get to the final reading and the vote tonight on medical marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Adams.
Chair, through you, thank you. I also believe it's on the link on their website.
this one, by all means, is available to the public as well. It's a little more detailed since we've gotten more footprints now and we've sort of advanced a little bit. I discussed the host community agreement a little bit more detail, but that was certainly a solid introduction to this introduction, if that makes any sense. And at the end, of course, our contact info, any questions of any kind from anyone. We are transparent. We are here to introduce ourselves, and I will answer, and Chris will too, any questions anytime from critics and supporters and everyone in between. Happy to have a discussion. And thank you all again for coming out. I hope it wasn't too long. I'm sure there's lots of other things that are pressing, but it was our pleasure to be here very much.
Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of comments. First, I want to thank Bob and Chris for the extraordinary job tonight, but also for the professionalism that they've showed in the meetings with my staff. It's been a really great process, and we got to know a little bit about you. And I've had an opportunity to learn about Hamilton as well, and the Patton family is extremely held in high esteem in the town of Hamilton, and to get a facility, a growing facility in Hamilton, is quite an achievement in its own right. So I appreciate that. They have a long history. The family name, obviously, we're talking about General George Patton, which I think is extraordinary that his family is doing this, and his support for the veterans work. So I appreciate the professionalism. Just to let the counselors know the next steps, we've already been looking at a host agreement and what's called a letter of non-opposition. So those are two of the next steps that we are already working on. Ken and Rosemary have reviewed the current host agreements in other communities, and there's always one that's sort of a standard in the other towns. So we've actually already drawn up a host agreement that we think is pretty good. I will be sending that. Ken's doing some minor revisions to a meeting we had today about it. That will be going to our town council for review, our attorney for review, to make sure it's good. After we're comfortable that we believe that it's a product that's good for the town of Southbridge, we will send Mr. Patton a copy of it for his review, and we will bring those two issues, the letter of non-opposition and the host agreement that is being completely developed by the town. We will bring that to the subcommittee for their review. I believe it'll end up being at the P&D subcommittee. So we really feel good about the way the process is done. It's been great that he's already been before the Planning Commission and has been really open and honest about everything he's trying to do. So again, I appreciate the work you guys have done and look forward to working with you as this process goes forward.
If I want to thank you as well and all of you, but let me also say, the beautiful thing about the host community agreements, and I know your council will and I'm sure you're quite aware, any town, Southbridge, if there's an issue with whatever we're doing, whether we fall short in some way, you don't have to go to the state to get some sort of, answer for whatever. It provides local oversight, and that's so important in terms of trust level with boards such as this, to say this is not something now between our business and the state. This is local oversight, as well as the financial element, which we talked about, but the local oversight is almost as important. That idea of access, communication, regular meetings and such. This is really, really important to have in these host community agreements, and that's really what they're about. And so I think that's the spirit in which we approach it.
All right, any further questions? Well, thank you very much for being here tonight, Mr. Patton and
Thank you.
Chris. Appreciate your honesty, the packet. We look forward to working with you throughout this process. And I like the idea of it that it's a true partnership, is what you're conveying. We'll hold you to it, of course.
Absolutely.
But thank you very much, and we look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thank you. Thanks to the town council and also to everyone else here. Thank you so much.
Excuse me. Agenda item 8, Citizens Forum. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the council? Please come forward, state your name and your address, please.
Hello, my name is Jennifer, and
Jennifer Watts, please state your name.
Sorry.
And your
My name
address.
is Jennifer Hill, and I live on Everett Street, and I've been a Southbridge resident now for 3 years. Okay. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. Okay. I just want to inform the town council that I'm having an issue with the Southbridge Police Department. The issue with the police department that I'm having is protection of a police informant. This informant was able to come to my residence and assault me, threaten me, and not let me into my door. After calling for help, that was the worst mistake I've ever done in my entire life, to call the police department. Not only was this woman protected by the police, but they also turned their heads to me. I have no trust in the police department and no faith at all. There's corruption in this town, and it has to stop. Mind you, I've never had a prior incident when I moved here for about a year until this informant was able to assault me. Not only was she able to assault me, she was able to go to the Dudley District Court because they're all in conflict of interest, and was able to get a false harassment order on me when I've never done one thing to this woman, not even been to this woman's street, okay? We have a very broken judicial system here in Massachusetts. And at the present time, I am looking into getting a lawyer for the liability of the Southbridge Police Department for protecting the informant, protecting one of their own. They use the law to intimidate, harass, and threaten me. I don't know who else I can go about this situation, but just to let everybody know, I have a terminal brain injury, and I don't appreciate this kind of treatment. I've been to the town hall several times. I've called numerous counselors on this forum here. I changed my life around. I'm not a violent person at all. But this has to stop, honestly. It really does. So, also an incident just happened with my daughter that I'm not too happy about. I don't know if there'd be someone willing to speak with me on that, but I don't want to go public with that. But that's another issue here. So I just wanted to let everybody to know, if you have something to say, or if there's something going wrong with the police, don't be afraid to speak out. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Ms. Hill, thank you for bringing that information to our attention. I appreciate the fact that you came forward. This is not the forum for us to discuss individual activities within the police department. I am aware of some of the issues that have been ongoing. You do have remedies through the court system, which you, I believe, are going to avail yourself of. I apologize if you don't think that you're getting the right services from the town side. We're very limited on what we can do. I would suggest, if you do have legal counsel and they wish to send us a letter as to outline whatever actions, we'd be more than happy to take that under advisement. But at this point, we cannot discuss any legal issues such as that or any allegations of wrongdoing in a public forum. Okay? Thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience that wishes to address the Southbridge Town Council? Anyone else? Seeing none. We'll move on to agenda item 9, vote to confirm the town manager's recommendation to appoint Nicole Duffy to the Board of Health for a 2-year term effective immediately through June 30th, 2020 to fill a vacancy due to member resignation. Is there a motion?
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilor Nash, seconded by Councilor Steves. Discussion. Councilor, Mr. Town Manager.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, I had an opportunity to interview Nicole at great length and had a wonderful discussion. She has a degree from Worcester State College in psychology. She's worked on the CASA project for quite some time, from 2011 to currently, which is a court-appointed special advocate for people with special needs. Been involved in all kinds of healthcare kind of issues. I really appreciate the talent she's going to bring to the Board of Health. As you know, we're not, sometimes I think people think all we deal with is the landfill. But the board, quite frankly, has a lot of different issues as it relates to public health. I really believe that she's going to be a tremendous asset. I do want to state that we've had, for the first time, we've had 2 different candidates who were interested in this position, and quite frankly, it was a difficult choice. But I think that Nicole is, at this time, is the best candidate. And if more openings occur, it's nice to know we have people lined up that are still interested in this commission. So she actually attached, I think you guys have been given a resume in her background. It's actually very, very impressive. I'm not going to go all through it, but I hope the town council will support this pick. I think it'll be a great benefit to the town.
Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I'll agree with the town manager, first of all, that Ms. Duffy's a fine choice as a candidate for the Board of Health. We did take up the matter of the town manager's recommendation to appoint Ms. Duffy to the Board of Health on August 30th at our EHS meeting. Our meeting minutes are in draft form. However, I'd like to just read the brief paragraph that Committee Secretary Adams, Councilor Adams, had prepared. Just for record, in regards to this particular agenda item for that recommended appointment, Town Manager gives brief on Ms. Duffy and explains that he's looking for an individual that will be impartial to the matters that will be brought before the Board of Health. He believes she is the perfect choice. Councilor Steves mentions he is impressed by Ms. Duffy's mental health background and asked a few questions pertaining to our town. Ms. Duffy emphasizes communication is key when it comes to this specific area. Councilor Adams notes he appreciates Ms. Duffy volunteering for such a position here in town and thanked her for her patience in this process. Subcommittee was beyond quorum. We were full with 5 members present, and we received, or Ms. Duffy received, a completely unanimous 5-0 favorable vote recommended to council. I've had the opportunity to speak with Ms. Duffy at committee and outside, and I'm very impressed with her. I'm very happy to bring her forward myself, as well as a member of the committee, very favorably. So I look forward to this council hopefully voting favorably to put her on the Board of Health tonight. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, unanimous of those present. Item 10, vote to confirm the town manager's recommendation to appoint Joseph Farr to the Commission on Disabilities for a 1-year term, effective immediately through June 30th, 2019, to fill an unexpired term. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, this particular commission is not...
Motion?
Oh, motion, I'm sorry, motion. Okay, all right, I apologize. Go ahead, Mr. Manager.
Thank you. As you know, this commission has not been real engaged in the last year or so, and we're trying to rebuild it back up and get this commission back in full gear. Joseph actually came to me. You guys may have seen him at the town council meeting. He's come and spoke before the town council on other issues. A fine man who I think is dedicated to this particular issue. We are trying to get, obviously on this commission, we have people with disabilities and people experienced in working with people with disabilities. So the commission is moving forward in that direction. I also want to respect the fact that the former chair is actually going to work with us to kind of reestablish this committee and bring in the history of the committee for the new members and stuff. So I think we're going to be meeting very shortly to kind of regroup this committee and get it moving in a positive direction.
Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, very briefly, we also, at the same EHS subcommittee meeting on August 30th, took up this potential appointment, and Mr. Farr was present, availed himself to questions, and the committee unanimously provided a favorable recommendation, 5-0, for this appointment. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item 11, vote to confirm the town manager's recommendation to appoint Arthur Martin to the Historical Commission for a 2-year term effective immediately through June 30th, 2020 to fill an unexpired term.
So moved.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you. I'm very happy to bring forward Mr. Martin for this committee. He actually had a number of committees that were interested to him, including Conservation Commission. In the end, this is the one he decided on. I'm going to just make one statement right from his committee interest for him. He said, born, raised in Southbridge, and lived here all my life. I'm very knowledgeable of our local history and always had a passion for Southbridge. Preserving national architectural buildings, historical architectural buildings should not be forgotten. He also has worked for Old Sturbridge Village from 1992 to 98, which tells you a lot about history and how much he cares for that particular issue. He graduated from UMass Amherst and Worcester State College, and again, I think he's going to be a true asset to the town.
Thank you. Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I agree with the town manager, first of all, that Mr. Arthur Martin's a fine choice to be appointed. We took up this particular matter at the EHS subcommittee meeting on August 30th. Plenty of nice things were said because many of us have seen Mr. Martin around town hall at various subcommittee meetings and other board and commission meetings. The committee unanimously provided a favorable recommendation, 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, unanimous of all present. Item 12, vote to confirm the town manager's recommendation to appoint Ryan Servant to the Cable Advisory Committee for a 3-year term effective immediately through July 31st, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, as you all know, Ryan's the gentleman that donated some equipment for our public access station, a really fine gentleman. Has an associate's degree in the art of technology or television broadcasting, so he's perfect for this position. But even more so, he's just somebody who cares deeply about the community and wants to do everything he can to improve Southbridge. So again, I think he's going to be an asset to the community being involved in this particular commission. This is the Cable Advisory Commission.
Any discussion? Councilor Nash?
Unanimously favorable recommendation of EHS Subcommittee. Mr. Servant wasn't able to attend, but his credentials are quite impeccable. He'll be enormously valuable to the Cable Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item 13, vote to approve the transfer of $1,080 from Town Council Reserve Number 1.132.5781 to Property Management Miscellaneous, account number 1.190.5700.0.744 to cover the increased cost for FY 2019 parking lease for Town Hall with Alcoma Realty Trust. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? This is Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This again really deals with parking for Town Hall. We have more employees than we have parking spots. We found that out clearly when the owner of a property next door where we've been using his property worked with me to count them and to look at it. This increases a few spots for the Town Hall employees to actually park. It's fair to the neighbor. The Town Council already approved the lease. This just puts the funding behind the lease so we can move forward.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item 14, vote to approve the transfer of $12,000 from landfill royalties account number 6790 to a special article landfill court case expenses to cover costs including document gathering, transmitted notices, and any other necessary expenses. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Council Steve, Council by Council Nash. Discussion? Town Manager?
Just a brief explanation about what this is. As the citizens of Southbridge know, Town Council and I have essentially have taken Casella to court to require them to fill their obligation under the agreement we have them to provide curbside collection to 2027. Part of that process allows us to ask the Casella organization for documents, and they've asked us for documents. There's thousands and thousands of emails they requested, thousands and thousands of documents that they requested. I need the money to pay staff to assemble all this information. It's required by the court to provide to, essentially to Casella for the purposes of this lawsuit. That's a part of this funding is actually for the hard documents, the staff to do it. The other part of the funding is to pay our company that does our consulting on our Microsoft Exchange, which is our email server. We're going to need to have thousands and thousands of documents, downloaded emails from as far back as 2005 that we're going to have to be able to take off. Also, we are working on the judge in the court case has asked us to provide notice of the potential outcomes of this case to the residents of Southbridge, so we'll be looking at providing information to them as well. This money is going to be set aside for all those kinds of issues so we can deal with them in the court case and to make sure we have the staff that's in place to meet the requirements of the court.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item 15, vote to approve the transfer of $20,000 from account number 1.190.5700.00.746 reserve for property repair, maintenance, and demolition to account number 1.210.5110 police salaries to hire and send 2 police officers to the academy. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Mr. Town Manager.
Yeah, the police chief could not make it. He called me right before the meeting and let me know that he had some family issues and he would not be able to attend tonight. But this motion basically establishes a process that was set up by the town council to ensure that we have police officers in place. When we know of an existing retirement, we have to send new officers to the academy for training. And if you just wait till somebody retires or leaves a disability pension, it could take up to a year to replace that person. This is to allow us to send an officer to the academy before the person physically retires. So if we know somebody's going to be leaving in April, we can send somebody to the academy early so we don't have a year without an employee. This is something, quite frankly, that I think was a very wise decision of the town council to make sure that we have our normal active roster of police officers on the streets to protect the citizens of the town It is a good policy, and we're going to continue moving this forward as we learn of future retirements and reasons that people leave.
Just as a point of clarification, it's actually one that's already medically retired and one that's pending retirement.
I'm sorry. Just to re-clarify, because I had that conversation with the chief, this is really for the one person who's leaving in April as a normal retirement. The chief told me tonight he has current funds in the budget for the one that's leaving on disability pension. Okay. That just came to me literally before the meeting, so Mr. Chair, that's why you wouldn't know about that.
Okay. Councilor Steve?
Yeah, just a quick question. I was thinking, since we were talking about it, might not be a bad idea if we can actually put a line item in the budget going forward for this particular use so that we can actually see it and we'll have some idea of how often that gets used and so forth?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I don't think that's a bad idea. It's something we can consider for next year's budget period. We can sort of understand that this might occur during the year and have money set aside, and in the end, we can just sweep the account if we have to. But it does make some sense to have some extra money for that purpose.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
In the absence of Councilor Manor, this issue did come forward to the Protection of Persons and Property Subcommittee on staffing of the Police Department as well as the Fire Department, and I believe this was unanimous of those present for recommendation to the full council. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? All in favor, none opposed, unanimous of all present. Item 16, vote to approve that the former fire chief's request to purchase his turnout gear for the total amount of $792.27.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion? Just a simple thing. The fire chief, as you know, has left the town of Southbridge. The town purchased gear for him, turnout gear. It fits him. It's custom designed for his body, so it really wouldn't suit the need of a new fire chief that comes in. This allows him to buy it for what we believe the value of that turnout equipment to be. So the town will get $792 versus having a set of gear that is not useful for our department. And there's a certain life to the gear. I guess it lasts so many years. It has lost some of those years, but I still think it has a few years left in it. So this is just frankly, I think it's just a fair deal for the people so we can get a little bit of money out of the gear.
Mm-hmm. Councilor Steve?
Yeah, I was curious. Can we put this money specifically aside for equipment for the fire department?
I'm sorry?
Can we put this aside for equipment for the fire department?
No, all money that comes into town goes into the general fund.
I know that,
so this would go right into the general fund. I mean, I guess specifically if you wanted to make a motion as such, but it's small dollars. If we need money, we can always transfer it around. So I wouldn't worry about it for that right now.
Okay.
Any further discussion? I appreciate Councilor Steve's idea on that because I do know the fire department came forward with a request for some hoods that were specific for cancer causing particulates. So if any process that we can see that we can assist the fire department in purchasing that with the refund, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing that through the process if my council's colleagues agree. But this was, again, in Councilor Manor's absence, was vetted through the Protection of Persons and Property Subcommittee with a favorable recommendation by all present. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? All in favor, none opposed, unanimous of all present. Item 17, vote to approve repairs to Briarwood Avenue, a private way, according to Chapter 8, Section 8102 of the Town's Code of Bylaws in the amount not to exceed $500. Funds available in the account number 1.499.5537, improvement of private ways. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Councilor Vitro, this went through your subcommittee, I believe was unanimous of those present, correct?
Well, certainly, Mr. Chair, and I just wanted to chime in. This is one of many of these subdivisions that are eligible for up to $500 in repairs. This was at the recommendation of Heather from DPW, and it was unanimous vote at subcommittee. And I would recommend the council vote accordingly.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councilor Steves and then Councilor Nash.
Go ahead, you can have it.
Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councilor Steve. Just a quick note that part of that discussion that was referred to by the DPW subcommittee chair about Briarwood Avenue revolved around simply road patch work for the most part. I know there was some concern about other things that was brought forth from conversations that I had, so I just wanted to be clear. This was for patching the road. Thank you.
You all set?
The other thing I did have one quick thing. There's a technicality. I think it should read section 8.102. I don't think there's 8,000 sections in chapter 8. I believe. I think that's what it should be.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. So 8.102.
Yeah.
Okay. And thank you for the clarification, Councilor Nash, because we are quite aware that there's a number of roads in town that need work, and this is a small patchwork to make it passable, just so that the town can plow and not damage $100,000 equipment. So it's $500. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item 18, vote to approve repairs to Chapin Court, a private way, according to Chapter 8, Section 8.102 of the town's Code of Bylaws, in the amount not to exceed $500. Funds available in the account number 1.499.5537, improvement of private ways. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion? I believe this was the same item that was taken up in the other agenda item with a favorable recommendation. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item 19, vote to ratify the proposed agreement between the town of Southbridge and American Alarm and Communications Incorporated to install and perform additional security camera work at the Jacob Edwards Library in the amount of $17,485.29. This is a capital fiscal year 19 item. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Town manager.
Thank you. This is a capital item that was approved during the budget process to finish up and have cameras all throughout the library. It's one of our sensitive buildings that we want to make sure both the employees and citizens are protected. This contracted, our director of the library has been working on this. I think this is really a good thing for the town, and we're really just looking for the approval of the actual contract. The funding for this has already been approved by the town council.
Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very briefly through you, this was taken up at the August 30th EHS subcommittee meeting with some substantive lengthy discussion, and we did have a unanimously favorable vote. And by the same token, Library Director Margaret Morrissey had availed herself to me to answer questions, and I want to just take a moment to apologize to her. I had miscommunicated about the timing of the meeting, so she wasn't able to attend, and I want to thank her for always being so diligent. She always shows up for the meetings on which those agenda items come forward, and that's my fault this time. So I just want to make sure everyone knows. You don't miss Margaret at meetings. She's always there. Thank you.
She's great at bailing you out when you need her.
Oh, yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? All in favor, none opposed, unanimous of those present. Item 20, vote to ratify the agreement between the town of Southbridge and Clear Channel Outdoor for outdoor billboard advertising in the amount of $3,300 as part of the town manager's substance abuse advisory plan. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you all remember, when we presented the town manager's substance abuse plan, we were going to have a billboard on Central Street was part of that program. I'm very pleased to say that the billboard, we thought we were going to be doing it for 2 months. For $100 more, we ended up getting 3 months. So this billboard is going to be the message, the anti-drug message will be 2 months in English and 1 month in Spanish. We had completed what we thought was the message, and as it turned out, some of the things are not allowed by the billboard companies, so they're redrafting the message for us, and hopefully we'll have a finalized message. We are hoping to have this up at the end of September, having it up for the 3 months, and then the billboard company is notified us too that if nobody else buys this billboard, they will leave the message up even longer. So I want to just praise our Andy Pelletier specifically, Director of Inspectional Services, for his work he's done on this. I think it's going to be a tremendous benefit for the town, and it will tie in, like everything else, to the school year is the whole point of this, and it's going to be a really positive thing for the town.
Mr. Chair, I guess through you to the town manager, is there anything available for council to peek at?
There could have been until the message got changed by the billboard company, and I'll give you an outline. A couple of the images we had on the original presentation was basically a image of marijuana and an image of cigarettes in the box. And it turns out that the outdoor billboard company doesn't allow that on billboards because they're, the concept is they don't want to promote those negative things. But this billboard is against those things, but the images are banned in their rules. So they stopped that billboard design we had. So They are working on it. They told me they would have it by late this afternoon for me. I checked my email. It wasn't there before the meeting because I'm excited to see it. So I don't have anything to show you this time. I could show you the one that they banned, but that wouldn't be helpful. So once I get the one before we send it out, I'll send it out to email so all you guys can see it.
And again, Mr. Chair, if I could, I just wanted to look at the language again on the specific agenda item, which is essentially the town manager has the ability to spend the money for the billboard that he sees fit. I would presume that at least the council should advise that the chair and the vice chair at least, I mean, I don't want to put too many hands in the soup here, but maybe the three of you guys should take a peek at this before it's approved and put up on a great big.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you. Just to let you know that Councilor Adams was very involved in the development of this particular billboard. Again, it's changing, but he was on the committee. Andy Pelletier was on the committee. Wally McKenzie, former Councilor McKenzie, was on the committee, who were all working on it. So the town council originally approved the $25,000 to be spent by the substance abuse, by me effectively, but with recommendations from this town manager's substance abuse council, it's all professionals in the field who are looking at this. So it's not just a regular citizen kind of thing. This is by professionals who are evaluating these billboards to make sure the message is correct. So I think that there is oversight of this. I'd be happy to send, the councilors the image. As a matter of fact, another thing that's going out, I'll be happy to send to you is part of that plan also had a direct mail piece to parents of middle school students and high school students. That is completely done and in the process of printing. I'd be happy to send that to you as well. I know some of the councilors, Councilor Nash, Adams, who've attended the meetings have seen that presentation, but I'd be more than happy to send it out to the full council so they can see what's going on. Frankly, I think everybody's very proud of it, so I think it's something we'd be excited to send to you guys.
If I could further on that, Mr. Town Manager? And the only reason to bring this up, and certainly no reflection on your expertise as far as this goes, but a very good friend and a town over is going through some turmoil right now over a billboard.
Okay. A friend of yours is going through turmoil? Okay.
Which has been on the news. I don't know if you caught that. But
I'd be happy to share.
this stuff gets taken the wrong way sometimes if it's not presented, and it really needs to be scrutinized, unfortunately, in today's day and age, which would be politically correct.
There you go.
No reflection on you personally, Mr. Town
Point well
Manager.
taken, Councilor Page. Councilor Steve, did you have something?
Other than just wanted to point out that we did see, you did give us a draft version originally in the subcommittee. I remember seeing it. So I just think it's kind of ridiculous that Clear Channel would just be so literalist about the way they wrote things, but I realize you don't have any control over that. So.
If I could respond.
Yep, Mr. Manager.
So thank you, Councilor Steves, and truthfully, I agree with you. I agree with you so much that I took it to their attorney to discuss it with them because I thought the reasons for setting up the rules were the direct opposite of what we were doing. Yeah. So I had that conversation with the attorney, but it has to go to a board, and the board would have to approve the changes, and they seemed unwilling to make those changes. So I totally agree with you, but at the same time, as you know, like you said, it's not my control.
Yeah, I know.
But I hope the new message is as effective as the one that Dave and Andy put together. I think it's extraordinary. So as soon as I see it and we kind of agree to it, I'll ship it out to the council so you can take a look.
Okay, thanks.
Any further councils?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything else? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, unanimous of those present. Item 21, vote to ratify the agreement between the town of Southbridge and Rockwell Roofing Incorporated to provide roof repairs to Jacob Edwards Library in the amount of $14,975 in accordance with the specifications laid out in the solicitation for quotes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So there was a motion by Councilor Nash, seconded by Councilor Steves.
I heard you saying, but
Well, I heard Councilor Nash first and then you, so.
whatever.
Any discussion? Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you. This is obviously to do some repairs on the library roof. There's some leaks going on, and obviously we've been trying to work to improve that building. We've fixed the outside of the building. We replaced the gutters. We fixed the masonry on the outside of the building. We're going to get the roof done, and then next we're going to be working on the interior of the building. This is the actual contract. This particular contract is those being paid for completely by state funds in this particular instance. I want to thank Heather, and I have actually drafted up the requests for quotes on this, and Matt reviewed those requests for quotes to make sure that the scope of services was lined up for the type of work we need to be done. And our library director has been very engaged in this as well. So a lot of people have been engaged, and I think this will be a good project, and it keeps moving forward to protecting the facilities of the town.
Right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Unanimous of those present. Item 22, vote to ratify the agreement between the town of Southbridge and Tully Construction in the amount of $337,625 for the repairs to the Dresser Street Culvert project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Mr. Town Manager?
Mr. Chairman, on this one, I'm going to move to our DPW director. There's a number of issues here. Well, I can explain them to some degree. I think she'd do a much better job than I would of detailing these particular issues.
Well, this vote is just to make a recommendation to go ahead and award the contract.
Award the contract,
Yeah,
that's correct.
this is the recommendation for you guys to approve us to award the contract for the Dresser Street Bridge. I know we kind of refer to it as a culvert because it doesn't look like a bridge. This is to replace the top of the culvert, which we know is failing. It is a complete replacement of the top of the culvert. The sidewalls would be remaining. The work is scheduled to be done over this fall with the hope of being done by Thanksgiving. And then the road be completely repaved from Cole Ave to, I can't remember what street it is now, but to the end of the street, to Sales Street, in the spring. It would have a base coat put on it, and then the final paving be done in the spring. If time allows and weather condition allows, it would be paved this fall. It's just a timing, giving the pavement. Questions?
Any questions?
I think we discussed it pretty much at subcommittee.
Council Steves?
Yeah, I know we did talk about it at length at subcommittee, but just for the public's interest, could you just quickly summarize how this bid compared to the other bids? And a little bit, we had like 7 bids, if I remember correctly. I don't have it in front of me, but there were like 6 or 7 bids on this project. This one was significantly lower.
I think there were 6 bids on this project. Yeah. They ranged. This was definitely the lowest, which we were required by law to take the lowest bid. He was considerably lower, but not so much lower that from the engineer's estimate and the other bids that we were overly concerned. He also was aware and reviewed his bid and said he was willing to do it at that price. I know in the past we've thrown out other bids or have other people withdraw because they found inconsistencies in this bid, that he's aware of a potential area that he might have been a little low in, but is comfortable enough to do the work. So.
Thank you.
And we have checked references. He's got great references. He's also, it's a local person who's looking to do this. This is Tully Construction. They're based right here in Southbridge. Very familiar with the area, very familiar with our town. Has done work for us in the past in town on bridges and such. So very reputable, is going to do a really good job for us. I'm very comfortable.
Good. Any further discussion? Just again for the public, and just correct me if I'm wrong, because there's been a lot of conversation about why the fall and not wait till spring. And my conversations with you as well as the police chief were that the concern was there's a potential for that to fail, and rather as a safety issue, and as opposed to let's get it done so that any safety issue, correct?
This bridge has been, this area had, we started this project over 3 years ago. We started the design of this project over multiple years ago and has taken this long to get through the state and get approval. Our intentions were hoping that we got the approval earlier this spring so we could have gone out to bid in the summer and had it done in the summer. But now that we have the approval, we didn't feel that delaying the project was very responsible of us. Since we know there is a section that we have cordoned off that definitely could fail. The beam is exposed, the concrete has completely fallen off part of the bottom of the bridge, not where anybody's driving, but that could happen in other areas and we could be forced to close the road anyways. So considering we had the design done, we had the approval by the state, we wanted to move forward and do the work as quickly as possible.
And again, that was more for the public because the public, sometimes I, for one, was always willing to say, when can we get that fixed for years? So, this was more the state permitting process, not the town's fault. the town's moving forward at this time because of safety concerns and responsibility. So that road will be closed for a period of time. I'm sure that we'll make sure that we announce it at council meetings and get it out on cable access that this is a period of time that, that we would do this.
Right now, the first step for us here would be to finalize the project with the contractor, have him meet and show us what his schedule is going to be. I would assume that we'd be looking for a shutdown starting probably in early October, and probably till Thanksgiving period. He does have to do some things before he can get started. You know, with these projects, there's lots of submittals for review and approval prior to him actually getting out there and doing any work. So we have some front-end stuff that will have to be done in September for approval with the consulting engineer, and then we'll see him, once he starts working out there, he's going to be working.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Steves?
Yeah, one quick question. Just thinking about him. Do you have any setup with the police department yet about detours and
Yeah, that's all
buses and that
part
kind
of
of
the,
stuff?
that's already all part of the approved design of the project.
It is, okay.
The detour, the main detour would be starting, we'll have detours starting at Marcy Street with only local traffic being allowed to go up as far as Cole Ave. So they'd be down Marcy and up over to South Street, you know, Main Street, South Street, around that way. Trying to keep as much traffic only to local traffic up in that area.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Councilor DePietro?
Mr. Chair, I agree. Teleconstruction, thankfully, we've got the best of all the worlds here, a local company, lowest bid, and impeccable reputation. And I would certainly recommend that this should be an unanimous vote. I would also suggest that Heather not sit down because the next agenda item is going to bring her back to the microphone. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Heather, just also, I'd like to thank you for addressing the concerns, just for the public also, that we did discuss it with the school because it does impact the school department using the old Cole Ave. Discussions with Pop Warner and football for those fall games that are there. So I appreciate the fact that you worked with them on that. Police and fire, so thank you very much for that. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? All in favor, none opposed, unanimous of those present. Item 23, vote to approve the purchase of an extended service plan, ESP, for 4 DPW trucks, 3 2016 F-350s and 1 2016 F-450, which I imagine those are Ford trucks, correct?
That's correct.
For a total cost of $16,165 to be paid out of the DPW vehicle repair budget. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilor Leclerc, second by Councilor Nash. Discussion? Councilor DePietro, this did go through your subcommittee. I believe was passed unanimous. Is that correct?
I'm very surprised, Mr. Chair. We went round and around with this, and at face value, when I walked into that meeting, I hate these plans, I completely do, but Heather had talked 4 of us into it inside of about 15 or 20 minutes, and I figured there'd be a little bit of, if nothing else, a few questions posed to her, but she convinced all of us in subcommittee.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions of Heather while we have her there? No? All those in favor? Opposed? All in favor, none opposed, unanimous of those present. Item 24, vote to ratify the agreement between the town of Southbridge and New England Sail Coat and Company Incorporated in the amount of $34,859 for the rehabilitation of basketball courts at Henry Street Field. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, and Heather, don't go away because if there's any real questions. This obviously is a rehabilitation of the basketball court that I mentioned earlier in the meeting. We're very pleased with the company. Heather's had a lot of experience with this company. And this is obviously a standard contract. The concept here, just so everybody understands, is that we're trying to get this done during the fall, and it's weather related. So we're really concerned, depending upon if it gets too cold too fast, they may not be able to do this work. Again, we're expecting this to be done this fall, but it may end up having to wait till spring, depending on when it goes. So that's our goal. And Heather, if you want to make any other comments about this.
Basically, they're resurfacing the existing surface that's out there, removing the roots and the area that is lifted from the roots and resurfacing and making that smooth, and then putting a new surface over the whole area. We're also installing, not under this contract, but 2 new poles will be installed prior to that resurfacing being done.
Just one other comment too as well, so people understand. Right now, if you drive by the park, you'll see part of the fence is down because they need to get equipment in there, and we actually power wash the court for getting it prepared for this. So you'll see that prep work has been accomplished by DPW. So if you go by the court, just understand why the bleachers are gone, it's all cleaned up, and part of the fence is down. That's all for purposes of getting ready to do this work.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? All in favor, none opposed, unanimous of those present. Item 25, vote to approve the reallocation of $150,000 approved on the June 25th, 2018, I imagine town council agenda, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
For the repair to the existing loader at the wastewater treatment plant, to the purchase of a new Volvo L70 loader for $1,000, you wish it was $1,000, $152,771,000, including a 5-year extended warranty, with additional funds provided from the sewer vehicle maintenance budget. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Motion is second. Discussion, Councilor Pietro?
Mr. Chair, for those who aren't aware, this whole purchase started out at a little over $300,000. I think it's a prime example of the oversight that council and council through subcommittee provides as we've beaten Heather down to a purchase for $150,000 from that original amount. And the process works. And I think this is a win-win. We had a little bit of discussion. We had one objection in subcommittee who's still looking at, it's almost the same amount of money, and Heather would probably be able to describe it to us better, to repair the machine that we have. We're getting one almost the same size, brand new, for the same amount of money. I was all about it, and again, I still contend it's a win-win. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Heather, I appreciate the fact that we talked about this and how you went about doing this project for that. And to the council's credit, we did save a substantial amount of money.
Yes.
And I think going forward, that dialogue is a great dialogue to have, like Councilor DePietro said, because I think it was healthy debate. And I think we learned a valuable lesson that sometimes more homework at the beginning maybe alleviate some of those things as to, on both sides, I mean, especially my side. But it is a win-win because fixing this is replacing for the public, is replacing a 1999 machine that potentially is just to go out and have it serviced. So it was operational, was going to be well over $100,000 with a 20% contingency.
Yep.
Which would put it around 120, 130 for a 20-year-old machine, and for the dollar amount that we're expending extra that was allocated out of that budget, that's just good business because now it's a new machine. We're getting trade-in value for the old machine, so that is good business. I'd like to thank my fellow councilors for the hard work on that. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? All in favor? None opposed? Thank you, Heather. There you go. Easy night, right? Councilor Nash?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make mention that before we get to the next agenda item, which is a reading, if the council would indulge, I'd request a quick recess for a bathroom break because I think we have a couple of lengthy items.
I would agree. We'll take a
Five's more than
5-minute recess because we have the reading, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think we should have the town manager read this while we're having about.
I would do that, I don't care.
Reconvene. Next item will be the third reading of the amendments to Southbridge zoning bylaw, introducing a new definition in Article 3. Definitions, Section 300.541, registered marijuana dispensary, RMD. Section 300.541A, registered medical marijuana cultivation center, RMMCC. Section 300.541, subsection B, registered medical marijuana dispensary center, RMMDC. And in Article 5, Section 502.35, registered medical marijuana cultivation center, RMMCC, and allowing such use with a special permit In single-family residential, retail business, general business, light industrial, heavy industrial zoning districts, business opportunity districts, and essential core, and add in Article 5, Section 502.36, Registered Medical Marijuana Dispensary Center, RMMDC, and allowing such use with a special permit in retail business, general business, light industrial, heavy industrial zoning districts, business opportunity districts, and the central core, and add in Article 19, medical marijuana and registered marijuana dispensaries. Again, this is the third reading. Our first reading being on August 13th, 2018. Our second reading being August 20th, 2018. Tonight being the third and final reading. I'm going to start with Councilor Daniels.
Definitions, Section 3. Section 300.541, Registered Marijuana Dispensary, RMD. An entity registered and approved by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health in accordance with 105 CMR 725.100 to be known hereinafter as an RMD that acquires, cultivates, possesses, processes, including development of related products such as edible marijuana-infused products, tinctures, aerosols, oils, or ointments, transfers, transports, sells, distributes, dispenses, or administers marijuana, products containing marijuana, related supplies, or educational materials to registered qualifying patients or their personal caregivers to be conducted entirely within a secure facility with no drive-through services. Unless otherwise specified, an RMD refers to the site or sites of dispensing, cultivation, distribution, and preparation of marijuana. For the purposes of this bylaw, RMDs shall be referred to as a Registered Medical Marijuana Dispensary Center, RMMDC, and Registered Medical Marijuana Cultivation Center, RMMCC. Section 300.541A, Registered Medical Marijuana Cultivation Center, RMMCC, an entity registered and approved by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health in accordance with 105 CMR 725.100 to be known as a Registered Marijuana Dispensary, RMD, that cultivates, possesses, processes, including development of related products such as edible marijuana-infused products, tinctures, aerosols, oils, or ointments, transfers, transports, sells, or distributes marijuana, products containing marijuana, and related supplies to a qualified registered medical marijuana dispensary center, RMMDC. Section 300.541B, Registered Medical Marijuana Dispensary Center, RMMDC, an entity registered and approved by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health in accordance with 105 CMR 725.100 to be known as a Registered Marijuana Dispensary, RMD, that acquires, possesses, processes, including development of related products such as edible marijuana-infused products, tinctures, aerosols, oils, or ointments, sells, dispenses, or administers marijuana, products containing marijuana, related supplies or educational materials to registered qualifying patients or their personal caregivers. Unless otherwise specified, RMMDC refers to the site or sites of dispensing and preparation of marijuana. Add Article 19, Medical Marijuana and Registered Marijuana Dispensaries. Section 1901, Purpose. It is the purpose and intent of this section of the zoning bylaw to provide for the limited establishment of registered marijuana dispensaries, known hereafter as RMD, as they are authorized by the Humanitarian Medical Use of Marijuana Act, Massachusetts General Laws 94C, and state regulations adopted by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, DPH, under 105 CMR 725.000. The implementation of an act for the humanitarian medical use of marijuana in locations suitable for lawful RMDs, to minimize any adverse impacts on adjacent properties, residential neighborhoods, schools, playgrounds, and other areas where children commonly congregate, local historic districts, and other areas that are incompatible with such uses, and for the location of RMDs where they may be readily monitored by law enforcement for health and public safety purposes. It is neither the purpose nor intent of this section of the bylaw to supersede any federal or state laws governing the sale or distribution of narcotic drugs. Section 1902, applicability. This section applies to registered marijuana dispensaries, RMD, to be constructed after the effective date of this section. The commercial cultivation, production, processing, assembly, packaging, retail or wholesale, trade, distribution, or dispensing of marijuana for medical use is prohibited unless permitted or established as an RMD under this Article 19. An RMD may be permitted upon application to and the granting of a special permit and site plan approval by the Planning Board, acting as the special permit granting authority as specified in Section 701.1 of the Southbridge zoning bylaws. Section 1902.1, definitions. The following definition has been added to Article 3 of the Southbridge zoning bylaws. Registered marijuana dispensary. Changes and additions to Article 5 have been included to identify registered marijuana dispensary as a use. Where not expressly defined in the zoning bylaws, terms used in this section shall be interpreted as defined in the Humanitarian Medical Use of Marijuana Act, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 94C, and the Department of Public Health regulations promulgated thereunder, 105 CMR 725.000. Section 1903, requirements for all registered marijuana dispensaries. Section 1903.1, application requirements. No RMD shall commence operations without first applying for and receiving site plan approval and the grant of a special permit from the Planning Board, acting as the special permit granting authority. A special permit shall be granted provided that the Planning Board finds that the applicant has complied with all of the terms, requirements, conditions, and procedures of Section 701.1 of the Southbridge zoning bylaw, in addition to the requirements of this section. Site plan approval shall be granted provided that the Planning Board finds that the applicant has complied with all of the terms, requirements, conditions, and procedures of Sections 701A and 705 of the Southbridge zoning bylaw, in addition to the requirements of this section. The commercial cultivation, unless it meets the requirements for an agricultural or horticultural exemption under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 3, or as a hardship, cultivation as allowed by state law or regulation, production, processing, assembly, packaging, retail or wholesale sale, trade, distribution or dispensing of marijuana for medical use is prohibited unless permitted as an RMD under this section. In addition to the materials required under Section 701 and 701A.15, the applicant shall include A, a copy of its certificate of registration to operate a RMD issued by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. B, a proposed timeline for achieving operation of the RMD and evidence that the applicant will be ready to operate within that proposed timeline. C, a statement indicating the need for an RMD in the town of Southbridge and the projected service area, including the current patient population amounts in that service area. D, evidence that the applicant has adequate liability insurance. E, a copy of the detailed written operating procedures as required by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health in 105 CMR 725.105 or its successor regulation and as otherwise required by other applicable law or regulation. F, locations of all other RMDs in Worcester County. G, a copy of the policies and procedures for patient or personal caregiver home delivery required by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health for the RMD. H, a copy of the policies and procedures for the transfer, acquisition, or sale of marijuana between the RMD and another or independent testing laboratory as required by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. I, a copy of the policies and procedures for patient or personal caregiver home delivery required by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health for the RMD. J, a copy of proposed waste disposal procedures. K, a description and list of any waivers granted by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health for the RMD. L, details of proposed fertilizer, pesticide, water usage, and wastewater plans for any site that will include cultivation. M, evidence of the applicant's right to use the proposed site of the RMV facility, such as a deed, lease, or other real estate instrument. Additionally, if a cultivation facility, evidence of contract or agreement to grow marijuana for a certified dispensary. N, if the applicant is a business organization, a statement under oath disclosing all of its owners, shareholders, partners, members, managers, directors, officers, or other similarly situated individuals and entities and their addresses. If any of these above entities are business organizations rather than individuals, the applicant must disclose the identity of the owners of such entities or business organizations for each level of ownership until the disclosure contains the names of all individuals and their addresses. O, a detailed floor plan of the premises of the proposed RMD that identifies the square footage available and describes the functional areas of the RMD, including areas for any preparation of marijuana-infused products or open-air cultivation. P, a description of the security measures, including employee security policies required by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health for the RMD. Q, proposed security measures for the RMD, including lighting, fencing, storage, gates, and alarms to ensure the safety of persons and to protect the premises from theft. R, detailed site plans that include all of the information required under Section 701A of the Southbridge zoning bylaw, including distances to any of the uses identified in Sections 1903.2 below. The Planning Board shall refer copies of the application to the Department of Inspection Services, Department of Public Works, Fire Department, Police Department, and any other board, if warranted, to receive written comments related to community and environmental impact, public safety, traffic, municipal facilities and services, water supply, utility infrastructure, and wastewater.
Thank you, Councilor Daniels. Councilor Adams? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Section 1903.2, site restrictions. A, an RMD facility shall not be located within 500 feet of the following, or 250 feet if located in the central core, as measured in a straight line from the building and/or area actively used. 1, public or private preschool, primary or secondary school, dance or gymnastics school, martial arts school, licensed daycare center, or other facility where children commonly congregate in an organized, ongoing, formal basis under 105 CMR 725.110A14, or 2, a public library, or 3, a playground, athletic field, or any other recreational areas where children commonly congregate under CMR 725.110A14 that are not contained within a building. B, no RMMCC is to be located within 100 feet of any abutting occupied residence in a residential zoning district as measured in a straight line from existing structure to proposed development. 2, 250 feet of any non-conforming residential structures in non-residential districts as measured in a straight line from existing structure to proposed development. C, no RMMDC is to be located within 250 feet of any residential zoning district, residential structure, or any non-conforming residential structures in non-residential districts. Distance shall be measured in a straight line from the residential zoning boundary line or from existing structure to proposed development. D, no marijuana or marijuana-based products shall be sold or grown or cultivated in motels and dormitories or inside a mobile structure such as a cargo container, motor vehicle, or other similar non-permanent enclosures. E, no RMD shall have drive-through services. F, no smoking, burning, or consumption of any product containing marijuana or marijuana-related products shall be permitted on the premises. G, exterior signs shall identify only the name of the RMD, but shall not display advertisements for marijuana or any brand name, nor shall marijuana-infused products or associated products be displayed or clearly visible to a person from the exterior of the RMD. All exterior buildings openings or building openings, entries, and windows shall be screened in such a manner as to prevent the public's view of the interior from any public or private way or from any abutting property. H, hours of operation for any RMD shall be established by the planning board, but in no event shall the said facilities be open and/or operating between the hours of 9 p.m. and 8 a.m., including delivery services. I, if cultivation facility, a 6-foot fence or screening with security top should be erected. Sections 1903.3, location waiver. The distance requirements may be reduced at the discretion of the planning board through the special permit application if the application demonstrates that the marijuana establishment will employ adequate security measures to prevent diversion of the marijuana to minors. Sections 1903.4, conditions. The planning board, as special permit granting authority, shall attach the following conditions to all RMD special permits, including, but not limited to, applicable site-specific conditions as determined by the board in accordance with sections 701.1 of this bylaw, in addition to 105 CMR 725.000. A, the special permit shall remain exclusive with the applicant, who shall also be known as the permit holder after the granting of the special permit, who shall be the owner or lessee of the premises described in the application as the site for the proposed RMD, and shall terminate automatically on the date there is a voluntary or involuntary separation of the applicant's title or leasehold interest in the premises of the applicant's right to occupy the premises terminates for any reason. B, each RMD permitted under this zoning bylaw shall, as a condition of its special permit, file an annual report to the planning board and the town clerk and providing a copy of all current applicable state licenses and registrations for the RMD and/or its owners. Any updated operating policies required under 105 CMR 725.105 or by the Department of Public Health, the current insurance policies for the RMD, and demonstrated compliance with the conditions of the special permit. C, the permit holder shall file a copy of any incident report required under 105 CMR 725.110F with the Inspector of Buildings, Police Chief, and the Planning Board within 24 hours of creation by the RMD. Such reports may be redacted as necessary to comply with any applicable state or federal laws and regulations. D, the permit holder shall file a copy of any deficiency statement, plan of corrections, summary cease and desist order, quarantine order, summary suspension order, or limited sales, notice of a hearing, or final action issued by DPH or the Division of Administrative Laws and Appeals as applicable regarding the RMD with Department of Inspection Services, Police Department, and Planning Board within 48 hours of receipt by the RMD. E, the permit holder shall provide to the Department of Inspection Services and Police Department the name, telephone number, and electronic mail address of a contact person in the event that such person needs to be contacted after regular business hours to address an urgent issue. Such contact information shall be kept updated by the permit holder. F, the special permit shall lapse upon the expiration or termination of the applicant's registration by DPH. G, the permit holder shall notify the Department of Inspection Services and Police Department and Planning Board in writing within 48 hours of cessation of the operation of the RMD or the expiration or termination of the permit holder's registration with DPH. H, the legal entity and structure of the applicant permit/permit holder shall not change as represented in compliance with sections 1903.1N. Section 1903.5, abandonment or discontinuance of use. A special permit granted under this section is not transferable and shall have a term limited to the duration of the applicant's ownership or leasing of the premises as an RMD, dependent on the applicant's continued existence as the same legal entity. Any violation of sections 1903.4H shall be considered a transfer for the purpose of this bylaw. B, an RMD shall be required to remove all material, plants, equipment, and other paraphernalia in compliance with 105 CMR 725.105J and O prior to the surrendering state-issued licenses or permits, or within 6 months of ceasing operations, whichever comes first. Section 1904, severability. All other applicable provisions of the Southbridge zoning bylaw shall also apply to this section. If any section or portion of this bylaw is ruled invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction, such ruling will not affect the validity of the remainder of this bylaw. Amend Section 502, Table of Use Regulations, to add Registered Medical Marijuana Cultivation Center, RMMCC, and allow in single-family residential, retail business, general business, light industry, heavy industry zoning districts, Business Opportunity District, and Central Core with a special permit under Sections 502.34, and add Registered Medical Marijuana Dispensary Center, RMMDC, and allow in the retail business, general business, light industry, heavy industry zoning districts, Business Opportunity District, and the Central Core with a special permit under Section 502.36. Table of Use Regulations, 502.3, Other Institutional Uses. 502.35, Registered Medical Marijuana Cultivation Center, or RMMCC, Single Family, Special Permit. Two Family, no. Multifamily, no. Retail Business, Special Permit. General Business, Special Permit. Light Industry, Special Permit. Heavy Industry, Special Permit. Business Opportunity District, Special Permit. Central Core, Special Permit. 502.36, Registered Medical Marijuana Dispensary Center, RMMDC. Single Family, no. Two Family, no. Multifamily, no. Retail Business, Special. General Business, Special. Light Industry, Special. Heavy Industry, Special. Business Opportunity District, Special. And Central Core, Special.
Thank you, Councilor Daniel and Councilor Adams, for reading that. Appreciate it. Any comments on the reading itself?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Councilor Steves?
I have a quick question for clarification through. Is Ken still here?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'll take it back up there. Okay, under section 1903.2B, I just want to clarify exactly what you meant by proposed development. Because I didn't catch this earlier, but reading it made me think that could be kind of confusing depending on what somebody interprets that to mean.
I think what was discussed throughout the public hearing was this was maybe boilerplate, but it referred to what would be part of an applicant's package to the state, because they would need to present that timeline. So we're basically accepting everything that they would be sending to the state, the town would be accepting in their application package. And I believe that is what that refers to.
Because I was thinking the way that section is phrased, we're talking about 100 feet from blah, 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 from the proposed development in that section, or 250 feet, blah, 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 from the proposed development.
Oh, sorry,
and I was trying to figure out, understand
section.
What's that?
Okay, so we're on site restrictions.
It's 1903.2, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was on 3.1. What was your question again? I'm sorry.
If you could just clarify exactly what you want the bylaw to mean when you refer to proposed development. Because the way I'm picturing it is either to the nearest marijuana plants if they're grown outdoors, or the building if they're to be grown in it. That's the way I interpret it, but I was thinking because some other people could interpret it to where their fencing is, or any number of other possibilities, so.
I think it would be where any physical structure. So normally when we talk about development, I would suggest that we would be looking at any sort of building footprint. And that would be measured to, whatever the buffer is for that. Yeah.
How would it be interpreted if, for example, and I don't know if it's been done yet, but there's been talk about trying to encourage or allow growing outdoors. How would that be? How would that be affected by this?
That would be a good question. I'm not sure. I think until we can maybe see from examples around the state if this happens to be something that the state would allow, then we could address it then. But until then, I don't know, based on what the state would permit, if that would be something that we would have to address at this point.
Okay.
So, Mr. Manager?
Just to be clear, I thought even in the cultivation, all cultivation under the current law had to be indoors. Isn't that true? So there would be no outdoors facility in the way you're describing it. It would have to be, all of them are supposed to be indoors anyway.
I believe at the moment they are, but I know that I've seen some articles talking about trying to allow it for outdoors. And I was trying to think
Under
ahead,
current law, it would
yeah.
only be indoor anyway, so yeah, I guess we would have to adapt if ever they change the law to allow it on outside. But frankly, I don't see that happening, but it is possible.
Okay, and just to clarify, for 19.035B, I think there's a comma missing between plants and equipment.
18035, I'm sorry, guess what?
1903.5B. It says, remove all material, plants, equipment, and I'm assuming that there should be a comma between plants and equipment.
Yeah, after plants, equipment?
Well, plants, comma, equipment, and...
Plants,
equipment,
comma,
yeah.
I'm assuming you meant that?
Should be two commas, one after plants and one after equipment, right?
Well, you could put it there, too.
If we're a
at the end.
proponent of the Oxford comma.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we can, I don't think that would change the
That won't
intent of
change
this
anything,
bylaw.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
gotta change the context, yeah.
Yeah, just for clarification.
Councilor Daniels?
Yes, I'd like to ask the advice of the council, if I could. Early in the bylaw, it talks about the production of tinctures, oils, and ointments. So I'm wondering if on page 4, 1903.2, site restrictions, letter F, we shouldn't add the word application. So it says no smoking, burning, consumption, or application of any product containing marijuana, et cetera.
So F, you're looking at F,
Where
right?
are you here?
Letter F,
1903.4? Yeah.
1903.2, letter F.
Just call up what-
Add the
So,
word,
so to add what?
add the word application to the restrictions.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Although I think it would possibly be covered by consumption, but
I'm not saying we need to, I'm asking, what you think.
what's your feeling on that?
Yeah, I'm just, so it's 300, so on which, first paragraph, 300, what?
No, 19 on page 4.
No, yeah, but which one are you referring to, the earlier that it's referencing? I guess that's my question. In the
In
definitions?
the definitions. Yeah. Tinctures, aerosols, oils, or ointments,
Like-
blah, blah, blah.
Right, like section 300.541B.
Yep.
It mentions tinctures, oils, or ointments.
So you want, so to add that they can't,
I don't know, unless you consume an ointment, then everything's fine. That's why I'm asking, because I'm not clear.
I think that contains any marijuana-related product shall be permitted, so I think that includes it, because it would be a marijuana-related product.
No, he's saying, he's referring to the site, he's saying he's pointing out that under site restrictions 1903.2F,
Right.
I think consumption would be included, I think that would cover that.
Yeah, I think it would cover it, because it contains all that. So I think tinctures, oils, ointments would all be under marijuana-related products. That's the way I read it.
Okay. Can't use them. in the
Can't use
facility.
them at that facility.
Yeah, you can't use them in that
Whatever it is
facility,
with
period.
marijuana related, you can't use it in the facility, period.
Yeah. Councilor Nash, you agree? I mean, did you have a comment?
I have a comment, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, through you, thank you. I appreciate the note from Councilor Daniel. I think I understand exactly what he's asking. I don't know that everybody does.
I do.
I don't use these products, I never have. I hope I never have to. But it makes perfect sense to me that if it isn't covered by consumption, adding the word application would make sense, because I assume that's what you do with those versions of these types of products.
Yeah.
Maybe someone more intelligent than I could specify.
That's- Yeah, that's true.
So to add the word
I think application fits as he suggested.
Yeah. I think I agree. That you can't put it on while you're there at the facility.
Yeah,
You can't rub it in.
Can't rub it in, yeah. No smoke and burn or consumption.
Application or
Or
consumption?
application.
No, I agree.
I think we could-
That
I agree
would
with
cover
that.
it. That would cover the definition component that states that those types of products, because it's in the definition, you probably would want to address the application because it's an ointment, let's say. So I think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
So you're going to add application there? Okay, I agree. Everybody good with that?
Where are we adding it, before or?
No smoke and burn.
Application
Application
or
or
consumption.
Okay, thank you.
You got that, Kim?
Yes.
Okay. Anything further on that? Council DePietro?
Mr. Chair, to that point, and I've read this document several times. I'm sure we're all bored to death hearing it again. I'm sure we've all been through it. But after getting the presentation from these folks this evening, it gave me thought to go back and start reading it again and say, where are these guys going to be in trouble with this document? And I think when you go back to definition, the word preparation.
Where?
What section?
Definition section 3, the very beginning, under definitions. Preparation covers these folks and a couple of the questions that were brought up today as it goes through the rest of this. Preparation covers a lot of things you can do in that facility that when you start going through the rest of this, it's a question mark. Well, they kind of sort of can't do this, they kind of sort of can't do that. But when you go back to definition, preparation covers all of this. It truly does, and I think it answers some of the questions this evening. If you're going to use, reverse mechanics after the presentation this evening, to put it to a specific mindset that these folks have. So I think you're there.
You think what? I'm sorry?
I think we're there as far as having all the bases covered.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Anything further? Okay. So we'll move on, the vote to ratify amendments to the zoning bylaw introducing a new definition in Article 3, definition section 300.541, registered marijuana dispensary, RMD, section 300.541, subsection A, registered medical marijuana cultivation center, RMMCC, section 300.541, subsection B, registered medical marijuana dispensary center, RMMDC. Add in Article 5, Section 502.35, Registered Medical Marijuana Cultivation Center, RMMCC, and allowing such use with a special permit in single-family, residential, retail business, general business, light industrial, heavy industrial zoning districts, business opportunity districts in the central core, and add in Article 5, Section 502.36, Registered Medical Marijuana Dispensary Center, RMMDC, and allowing such use with a special permit in retail business, general business, light industrial, heavy industrial zoning districts, business opportunity districts, and the central core, and add in Article 19, medical marijuana and registered marijuana dispensaries.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this will require a 2/3 vote. Any discussion? Town manager?
Just one comment. I want to thank Ken for the work that he did on this, and Rosemary and the Planning Commission. A lot of people involved. I know there's been discussion, even councilors have been involved in this particular issue. But, we see the thing, and I think by people listening to how long this is and how detailed this is, there's a lot of work involved in getting it to this point. So I just wanted to, give thanks to all the people involved. I think you guys did a great job, and it's nice to see this moving forward in a responsible way.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I echo, go ahead, Councilor Nash. No, that's fine. I defer to you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I agree and I echo. I'd also like to thank Councilors Steves and Auclair for their participation, as well as the many citizens that got up and spoke during the several public hearings to help advise that the Planning Board reconsider the original version that we had seen in the last seating of the Town Council. And I, for one, am quite pleased to see the way that it has come full circle with a very acceptable version of this bylaw. I'll also thank Ken especially. He's answered every one of my questions more than competently, time and again, on short notice, sometimes when I just happen to be in Town Hall, and this is something that I am certain is going to be applicable to the future growth of the town of Southbridge, and it's a step in the right direction. So I'm very pleased to see it, and I'm going to continue to support it, as I've said all along. Thank you.
Anything further? Councilor Steves?
Just one quick comment. I wanted to add the thanks to the planning board itself for being willing to really seriously consider the issues and do the homework necessary to come up with this. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you. There's not much more I can add. Being new to the council, I thank you for the hard work that you put into this, the education that you provided to the council through your presentation to us. I know you're working very hard on the zoning bylaw updates that will become forthcoming, and I think that's going to be quite the process. So thank you for all your hard work on that. Thank you. Anything further? Okay, again, this requires a 2/3 vote, and with that, I will take a roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councillor Adams?
Yes.
Councillor Leclerc? Yes. Councillor Daniel?
Yes.
Councillor DePietro?
Yes?
Councillor Jovan?
Yes.
Councillor Nash?
Yes.
Councillor Steves?
Yes.
All in favor? Unanimous. Move on to Council's Forum. I know this is the Council's Forum, but if you'll indulge me for a minute before we start, because our DPW, Heather Bakley, had left, asked me to make an announcement as to there's a position open in the DPW that has been posted. They only had one applicant for that position, so she's looking to see if we can get the word out that this position for a maintenance equipment operator, that she's looking for some additional applicants that they can interview. The job posting is on the town website. I did advise her that I do have several councilors on this dais that are very involved in social media, so I'd ask if you could promote that. I also stated that I would imagine that the Citizens Chronicle out there could maybe put a word out that we are looking for applicants for the maintenance equipment operator. Anything that we can do to get a pool of candidates so that they can interview and move that forward. So I'm bringing that forward for her on her behalf because she had to leave. So thank you for the indulgence. With that, I will start with Councilor Nash tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, very productive meeting tonight, a very well-run meeting. I'd like to just give my compliments over to the chair for a job well done for the first 2 months of the sitting council. A couple of things that are bullet point items for me tonight. First of all, I think we've all up here on the dais been contacted or noticed comments about the water in town, and as we've said in the past, the quality of our water is actually very good. And in conversations that I've had repeatedly with the water division manager, the DPW director, even tonight, and with others who are sitting up here, I remain firm in my stance that the quality of our water is quite fine. The issues that you're experiencing, if you are aesthetic. They are not harmful to health. There are circumstances that are beyond our control when it comes to water temperature at the source going into the water treatment plant. Subsequently, water that's stored in the water towers around town are also subject to elevated temperatures, and while I don't purport to be an expert, I have a little more exposure than some. Those elevated temperatures cause some elements and other characteristics to be less than soluble. So you see discoloration, you may get some odors and taste issues. I'm very confident that this is not a problem. There's been a memo that was circulated from the water division manager through the town manager's office. It was provided to town council. And as I've said, I've had plenty of conversations. I've been to the water treatment plant myself, and I'm very pleased to be joined by Council Chair Jack Jovan this Wednesday to go meet with the water division manager to discuss this and other issues that have been brought to our attention. But I'm very firm in my stance, and I hope that the councilors will agree that we've done our homework. We're aware of the concerns that the constituents and the residents of our town have, but the water quality is good. If you have questions about that, you can always feel free to contact the water division over at the Department of Public Works. I'll also point out that there was a recent resignation I don't think we've addressed, and that is that of Director Steve Roenfeld. I don't think we've had a meeting since he resigned, and I wanted to wish him all the best and thank him for his service to the town of Southbridge. He has made a move. I think he's at the school department now, working as an educator. So thank you, Steve. All the best. There was something I wanted to make mention of, too, and that is just a shining star in our community is the Jacob Edwards Library, in my opinion. I spend a little bit of time over there. Margaret and Ashley and all the staff are always fantastic. It's a great resource for the community with books and CDs and art events and exhibitions and speakers, and we really should take full advantage of that resource. They are an asset, and I'm always satisfied with my dealings at the Jacob Edwards Library. Margaret, you have a fine team and you deserve commendation. Point out very quickly, too, that some months ago, previous council chair mentioned that we were looking for volunteers to serve on Charter Review Commission. I know in some recent conversations and discussion that we've had up here, there are some concerns about certain aspects of the charter. I'm wondering if that might be something the current chair and town manager could concentrate on. I obviously have my own comments that I'll be happy to send forth at that stage. And one last comment is just a reminder that because of personal circumstances, which turn out to be, at least in my mind, relatively minor health concerns and procedures I have to undergo, I will be absent on or about October 5th for a week thereabouts, so subcommittees won't be seeing me. And I'm also absent for a few days as I make a business trip down south the week prior. So September 30th through about October 10th, 11th, 12th, somewhere in that time frame, I won't be able to do much council work. But I just wanted to remind folks of that, and I appreciate the comments and questions that I've had. But otherwise, I appreciate all the hard work and the effort and the energy, and I can't tell you loudly enough how thrilled I am that we passed the zoning bylaw for medical cannabis tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor DePietro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilor Nash hit quite a few of the points that I wanted to, but it has very, very recently come to my attention regarding the water, which is of excellent quality in the town of Southbridge. Even though a gallon of water is approaching the price of a gallon of milk, and the men's urinal downstairs, as we speak, is flowing wide open, and probably will so for the next several days if it's not addressed.
The basement?
Downstairs.
The very basement, yeah. No,
Wide open.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I noticed that today, and after a few, I stood there waited, and after about 30 seconds it stopped. So I don't know how long you watched it, but it did stop. I will double check it again to find out if it's continuing, and then we'll deal with it tomorrow.
But we spent $100 today.
Okay, I'll take a look at it again tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Thank you,
Mr.
Chair.
Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for you. So I want to thank the volunteers again for stepping up. The residents of this town have actually drawn a line as far as going to the town manager's office, and actually we're now to a point where I believe Disabilities Board itself, there's maybe one coming up here soon at our next town council meeting, and another one has shown interest, so that's great. I really appreciate it. We still have some vacancies, and you can find that on the town website. Tomorrow morning, 17 years ago, I was in Okinawa, Japan, watching Monday Night Football, but it was Tuesday night because of the delay. Before I went to bed that night, all of a sudden over AFN, towers were hit in New York City. So, and a place in Pentagon and also in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So tomorrow we get up in the morning around 8:45, next couple hours. Please spend maybe a moment of silence thinking about others instead of ourselves. We're still fighting the war on terror. We do have family members within the town council itself that are still serving. We have people in the community, within our fire department, police department that are still serving in the armed forces. We have residents that family members are over in places that are hot and humid, dry. They're not like home. So if you can spend a few minutes thinking about them, say a prayer, and those families and friends that were lost 17 years ago, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Well said. Councilor Clay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I just have a couple of quick things. Before the meeting tonight, I was actually I went and sat in on the Agricultural Commission. They had their meeting where they've put together, I know that came before subcommittee, the Right to Farm bylaw. So they've done a lot of work on it. They've consulted with Andy Pelletier. The document that they've put together, I think, is really comprehensive, and it answers a lot of the questions that we had originally had about it. I think it's scheduled to go in front of the Board of Health for their endorsement, and then we'll be seeing it again. So I'm excited about that. I figured I'd update the rest of the council on that. This past weekend, I went to the Art Center on 111 Main Street. They had an opening for, it was an art opening called From Puerto Rico to Southbridge by Francisco Rivera Marrero, who was the artist who did the mural on the side of the old Los Hermanos. He did a really great presentation. His work is really, really colorful. There's a lot of personality in it. The closing for that is going to be on September 30th from noon to 4 p.m. It's a free event, open to the public. There's refreshments, there's food, drink, and honestly, they have some prints that are extremely affordable and already framed and everything too. So, I hope to see a lot more people there at the closing on September 30th, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Daniel?
Thank you, Chair. A better counselor is a better informed counselor. So I've taken it upon myself to visit with the department heads. So I'd like to publicly thank Melinda Funya, Will Canoia, Rosemary Scrivens, Interim Chief Normandin, and Andrew Pelletier for starting the process with me. There's, 12 or 15 departments in town altogether, and eventually I'll get to all of you, hopefully by Veterans Day. I'd like to get it all done. And I do that in the interest of getting a better, more deep knowledge as to what our departments do and exactly how they go about doing it. And ultimately, I think that provides a service to you, the citizens. There are 3 ballot questions that are going to be on the ballot this year. And I'd just like to remind people that now that school has started and we're settling into routines, now is the time to begin the process of educating ourselves on these ballot questions. All ballot questions are important, and waiting until you get in the booth and reading the little paragraphs that are on the ballot when you get in there really doesn't give good service to the import of what the questions are. So I ask that people start looking up information now, getting both sides of the questions, and making a good informed decision for themselves. I was also informed by the Board of Registrars that early voting will take place this year starting October 22nd and going until November 2nd. So if you don't think you're going to be around or you need, due to your circumstances, to vote early, that's from October 22nd to November 2nd. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor Daniel. And you're right about the ballot questions, that homework is needed. I think it was evident tonight when we attended the meeting earlier through Harrington Hospital. Just that one question on the nurse. Definitely people need to research, whatever side you're on, research to what the implications may be either way. And as far as town employees and the town department heads, I've always known it, but I've come to learn, being on the council side, that we are very fortunate with the department heads that we have, because we have quite the team here in the town with all the issues that we have, that they work very hard, very knowledgeable, so we're very lucky to have what we have.
I concur.
So thank you. Councilor Steve?
I was going to bring up the Harrington Forum also, because I thought that was well done. I think it would have been nice to have seen somebody from the pro-question side to see what they were really thinking, but definitely it was interesting, and it brought up some issues that I was concerned about. So we need to do some homework on this, because I don't know where I stand on that question at this point. But anyway, I also wanted to point out that we just finished the medical marijuana bylaw, as you all know, and the zoning bylaws are getting to the point of public hearing very soon. October 3rd, 6:30 p.m. is when the planning board is going to start the zoning bylaw public hearings for those. And that's probably going to be even more extensive than what we just did. Well, we know it will, because it's like 80 pages. So I don't know how long they plan on doing multiple. They'll probably do multiple days, just like they did for this. So if you're concerned about that, the documents should be on the website under the planning section, and take a look at them and get some comments to us that are on that committee up to the council as well, because obviously we will be considering this eventually. If you have any comments specifically, I'm also on the subcommittee that has been working on that, so you can contact me directly if you wish. And I think that's all I had at the moment.
Thank you. Agenda item 29, discussion next meeting date. Council Steves.
And that would be Monday, September 24th. I believe we're meeting at 6:30 with the Redevelopment Authority, and then regular meeting at 7.
That is correct. We have a joint meeting at 6:30 that evening with the redevelopment for the appointment of a member. Item 30, vote to enter into executive session in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Subsection 3. A, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body. And B, in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 39B, Section 23B, Subsection 3, to discuss strategy and conduct bargaining with non-union personnel. The discussion in open session will have a detrimental effect on the position of the government body, and if the chair so declares, to adjourn. Is there a motion? So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councilor Leclerc?
Yes.
Councilor Daniel?
Yes.
Councilor DePietro?
Yes.
Councilor Jovan?
Yes.
Councilor Nash?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Councilor Adams?
Yes. Thank you and have a good evening.